Hello and welcome back to the F2 show. I'm your host Fraser Ford, and joining me to review the action from this weekend, we have Inside F2 editor LA Wilshaw and Inside F2 writer Lawrence Griffin. Coming up on the show, an action-packed weekend on the streets of Baku. We reflect on all of the excitement. An incredible weekend for the rookies in the field. We evaluate their performances. And we take a look at the reaction on social media off the back of this weekend. But before we do all of that, LA, Lawrence, great to have you with us as always. On the Monaco review, we did a 30-second review of 30 seconds going on 3 minutes, I think it's fair to say, of a review of the weekend. This time, we thought we'd give Lawrence the responsibility to kind of compare, between the two of you, a bit of competition there. See if Lawrence can get any closer to 30 seconds. Lawrence, you up for that?
Yeah, with the real and genuine risk that is closer to a 30-minute race review, I'll give it a try.
I mean, yeah, I think 30 seconds is quite harsh, and I think we should probably change that moving forward. But go on, let's give it a go. Producer James, can we get a timer on the screen again, please? And Lawrence, when you are ready, review Baku.
Jehan Deruva locks up and loses the sprint race, leaving the door wide open for Vesti to come through and win for the first time in Formula 2, while Vips takes pole in the qualifying session but spurns the win, becoming the latest victim of the castle section as the usual Baku chaos and safety cars ensued. Drugovich navigated his way through to another podium to extend his gap at the top of the championship, while Pourchaire had a quiet weekend and fell behind.
Hey, that wasn't bad. That was not bad. LA, what do you make of that?
It fell short.
There you go. Well, not much happened, to be fair. Not much to talk about.
It was okay, but I get what you've done with that. And all right then. That's fine, you win.
A different type of review, gone slightly short there. A bit of fighting talk there from LA. So we'll get another guest on next time, and it's their responsibility to review the weekend. But no, seriously, it was a very strong weekend, a very exciting weekend, wasn't it? We'll talk about all of that shortly. But before we do that, let's take a look at the championship standings after round 6. What a season is turning out to be for Felipe Drugovich so far. He extends his championship lead further, moving 46 points clear of Théo Pourchaire. Jehan Deruva is just 10 points further behind in third. But the main talking point this weekend is that the rookies are making big moves. Second place for Logan Sargent in the feature race means that he jumps 5 places in the standings to P4, whilst Dennis Halger's win moves him up a massive 8 places in the standings to P5. And it's Marcus Armstrong that rounds out the top 6. And the team standings, MP Motorsport retained their lead at the top of the team standings. However, that lead has been reduced to 26 points after a strong weekend for Prema, who move into second in the standings. And ART just 4 points back in third. A weekend of what could have been for High Tech, they fall to 4th but remain ahead of Carlin. And points for Enzo Fittipaldi in the feature race means that Charus move into the top 6. And as always, the full standings are available on our website, www.insidef2.com. Right, let's get into it then. What a weekend of Formula 2 action, as we've said. I love Baku. I don't know about you guys, but I absolutely love it. It always produces so much drama, doesn't it? Let's start with our feature race winner, Dennis Halger. Maybe not a dominating display, not a lights to flag victory, but he was quick. He put Yuri Vips under enough pressure to make him make that mistake, and he took the win, Lawrence.
Yeah, the calm head really prevailed as far as Halger's concerned. Of course, like you say, there was an element of fortune in that win. Lawson got stuck in the pits, a bit of a slow stop, and maybe he was waiting for traffic to release him as well. And of course, Vips made that huge error going into the castle section. But you have to give Halger credit for keeping it clean around such a narrow city track. And of course, he put pressure on Vips and he was pushing him hard, but Halger himself was trying to push through that section as well, but he got that balance right and he didn't make any errors. So you've got to say he deserves that win, because if Vips had that clear gap, he wouldn't have to be so much on the limit and he'd give himself more margin and he'd probably win the race. But so Halger's really made his own luck that weekend. So yeah, I think he really deserved everything he got from it, and he's really starting to build a good season now after a bit of a slow start.
Yeah, he really is. Only the third driver this season to take 2 victories or more. He's the first driver other than Felipe Drugovich and Teo Pourchaire to win a feature race. He's really growing into the season, isn't he, LA?
With Dennis Halger is unbelievable. I mean, this is what we wanted anyway, isn't it? The Formula 3 champion coming across from Formula 3. He didn't have the sort of greatest start to the season. It did look like he was struggling a little bit, either with the Prema car, with Formula 2, with whatever it was. And he confesses that, it's no secret. He's not trying to pretend that he didn't have issues. But what he's doing now is, he's absolutely making it all work for him. As you say, P5, 55 points. I mean, he's got to be one of the drivers that's made a biggest impression on F2 in history, surely, coming up that quickly. And it goes to show that the other results he's had, in a way, get pushed to one side a little bit, because those 2 wins bump you right up. Obviously the wins that get you the points, and it's him, Theo, and Felipe, who have 2 or more wins now, the only 3 on the grid. And he's absolutely storming away, isn't he? Look at Monaco sprint race win, and now a feature race win. It's just fabulous to see.
Yeah, really, really strong performance from him, and a few people on Twitter saying that he's moved himself into contention, into the conversation for a Red Bull Formula One seat. Maybe over the last couple of weekends, strong weekend in Monaco, strong weekend here, or strong feature race here, definitely. If he continues this form, would you agree, Lawrence, that he's moving himself into contention?
Yeah, I think he's definitely putting himself in contention for that Red Bull spot, or for that AlphaTauri spot in F1. He's definitely putting himself into that conversation, because you look at the progression he's made this season from where he started struggling quite a lot to where he is now. The Red Bull bosses will be excited by where he can go in the future if he continues to progress in the way that he's doing. The performances have really picked up, and you put that against the likes of other drivers in the Red Bull Academy, who, like Lawson, Vips, and Deruvala, who have all shown that they have enormous quality, but have faltered at points this season. And that, compared to the upward trajectory of Halger, that's why they'll be getting so excited about him. So he certainly needs to be in that conversation. I've got the feeling an F1 seat for him next year will be a little bit too soon. I think he might be more of a case of like Mick Schumacher did in Formula 2, building through the first season and then making a proper title challenge in the second season. But the position Dennis Halger's in and the way that he's performing at the moment, who knows? This year could still be his year. It's Formula 2. Anything can happen.
Yeah, Prema have really turned things around as well, haven't they, as a team after a difficult start to the season. Kanal Shah on Twitter says 20 points for Jehan Deruvala at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, his highest score of the weekend, from a race weekend in 2022. Great points again, LA, but how would he feel off the back of this weekend? Really good points. We've spoken about his consistency in the past, but will he be a little bit disappointed not to be the Prema driver, the first Prema driver to get that first feature race victory of the season? We know how competitive drivers are when it comes to beating your teammate.
Yeah, Jehan's incredibly competitive, and not in a disrespectful way. He has. This is in a good way. He has quite a lot of confidence. Like, I don't want to say ego, but he has a big confidence. And from my point of view, he's a very solid driver. And I think there's been lots of occasions over the last couple of years where he's been a little unfortunate, or this things not quite gone his way. And that isn't always a true reflection of what a good driver is in any series, even in Formula One. We all know the talent of George Russell, and in that Williams, he just couldn't perform. He couldn't show his true potential. And I feel that Jehan might be one of those drivers that, unless you watch him closely, race after race, you do miss that potential, because his results don't necessarily reflect what a good, solid driver he is. I don't want to presume to know his mind and presume to sort of to think, yeah, he was very disappointed. But if it was me and the shoe was on my foot and I'd been around F2 for a couple of years, or my job for a couple of years, then I would personally be quite disappointed that I hadn't got it together, or something didn't work for me, that then my new hotshot teammate comes in, or fellow colleague, and they're suddenly getting the results and getting the attention. So it's a bit unfair, I think, some of it, to maybe look at it in a negative way, because Jehan works very, very hard at what he does, and he deserves all the points that he gets. And this weekend, he didn't do much wrong. He locked up, sadly, after that safety car restart for the sprint race. Again, a bit of misfortune. It's all about tyres. We know this. It is all about a little bit of pressure as well. And he did lose his sort of first race win, which was really gutting. That was good. Talk about Vips. The day before, Jehan was just as gutting for me watching as a Formula 2 fan. But he's pretty handy. He's with Carlin. He did pretty well. He's had wins, and in other formulas, and done really, really well. P2s this season. He had a P3 in Jeddah, didn't he, in the feature race? And then he's had 4 second places this season. So he's only one step away from that win. So come on, Jehan, give us all what we want.
Yeah, absolutely. We're all big fans of Jehan Daruda, aren't we? Lawrence, should he have won the sprint race? If we're being super critical, if we're looking at him as a potential Formula One driver, should he have won that race?
Yes, if you want to be in that conversation for the Formula One seat, you have to convert it when the opportunity comes along. You have to win in that situation. You just have to. There's always pressure when you're leading from a restart, and there's a lot to manage, as LA mentioned, with the tyres and the brakes. But that still has to go down as an unforced error. There wasn't a car right up the inside of him, and he just failed to stop properly for the corner. And that is, LA mentioned it, is quite a sort of damning statistic that he still hasn't won a race this year, and it's the 4th sprint race that he's finished second in. That last piece of the puzzle just hasn't been there so far, and that doesn't reflect well on him. That almost like, what is stopping him from making that final step and winning a race? And he's 3rd in the championship, remember, with his consistency, but he has Sargent and Halger, that we've mentioned already, within 20 points at him. And at the rate at which those rookies are improving, I think it looks like they'll catch him. And so maybe something's just stopping him from getting to that level. But despite his position in the championship, I can't see him fighting for the title this year. And unless he does something to give that impression to the bosses in Red Bull, who we know can be extremely ruthless, he won't make that next step up into Formula One. Like LA says, it is his 3rd year in the series, and there's an expectation that at that point your experience should give you an advantage over these younger drivers coming through. So I think overall, despite the good points haul that he got, he'll be a little bit disappointed with that weekend.
Yeah, I kind of think that sometimes drivers they sort of get a free pass. It's the same in football. We're all sort of involved around football as a sport as well, aren't we? And I don't know if some drivers may get a free pass over others, because we still have to remember that Dennis made a big mistake as well, trying to overtake Poucher in the sprint race, and he pretty much pulled the same move. He couldn't brake properly, went straight into the wall, and his sprint race was over. And yet, because he got the win yesterday, we're having a completely different conversation about him because he won a race. So I do sometimes feel like a bit sorry and a bit of a shame. If someone doesn't get the wins, then they're sort of maybe criticised a little bit more. I don't know how you think about that, about people having a free pass, sometimes.
I think it's a brutal sport, and you can perform at a really high level. You don't deliver that win like Halger did in the feature race, and you get punished for it, both in terms of the points for the overall weekend and both in terms of how people talk about it. I think it's a shame for him, but it's just the way it is.
It is brutal, as you say, Lawrence, especially when you got Helmut Marko as your boss. But as you say, LA, he's third place in the standings, 73 points. He's ahead of Halger, he's ahead of Vips, and he's ahead of Lawson. No matter if they're improving or not, and he's getting the job done at the moment. I think all of us, as we say, we're big fans of Jehan, and we just hope that he can take it to that next level and get a race win under his belt. Okay, let's talk about Yuri Vips. Oh, Yuri. Oh my goodness. Your heart goes out for the poor guy, doesn't it, Lawrence? But, and again, this is brutal, and I don't like being brutal about drivers, but it is a brutal sport, as you say. Is it time that we stop labelling this as bad luck for Yuri Vips and start saying that he needs to cut out the mistakes if he's to be taken serious about a Formula One seat?
It probably is. I think it's only fair. I've been harsh on Jehan. I've got to be harsh on Yuri as well. There was the Imola feature race that he should have won. He spun out in the Barcelona sprint race, which is actually not that big of a deal. But then when you put that together with the error in Imola and then a slow stop in the feature race at Barcelona, then it just builds the pressure. And all of a sudden you come into the Baku feature race and you've got Dennis Halger behind you, knowing that to get the season back on track, you really need to win. And that little bit of pressure really just builds, and that's been really, really punishing for Yuri Vips. And I do feel for him because he was really hard on himself in Barcelona when he spun out in that sprint race. And again, we saw how devastated he was at the weekend. Unfortunately, where he parked up at the exit of the castle section, there was a cameraman there, and the camera stayed on him for an excruciating amount of time. It was really difficult to watch. This is such a punishing sport, and so I just hope that he has the right group of people around him, because that is going to be tough to take. But at the same time, he's one of the quickest guys out there. And when he gets the balance right, he's a real force to be reckoned with. You don't get into the Red Bull Junior program for no reason. And he won twice around Baku last year. And so he's proven that quality that he has. So he's got a few weeks now to reset, go again next time in Silverstone. But he really needs to take advantage of that, because if another error crops up in Silverstone, then the story will be that this guy can't keep it on the track. And that would be really harsh on him, but that is what the story will be. And the sport, as we've said, is very quick to push people aside and to give people a reputation as someone that keeps tripping up and making errors. So there's still plenty of time for him, but he does need to cut those little errors out.
Yeah, very easy for me to sit here and say this as an armchair expert, LA, but does he need to be pushing that hard at that stage of the race with 2 laps to go? Can he be slightly more conservative and just bring it home? Or I know he's obviously got Dennis Halger behind him who's pushing hard as well. What do you think?
Well, first of all, I'm glad that Lawrence did use that word excruciating, because I felt exactly the same. I felt very uncomfortable sort of watching those scenes of him. I could feel probably every emotion that went through him at that point. And I was devastated, to be honest. And I think, because it just came across the TV, and I wanted to look away. I was like, oh, please get this camera off him. We don't need to see this right now. And so I do feel the same. I mean, I don't like to be as harsh and as brutal. Everyone gets a chance with me. But I do agree that if he continues to not, is this 3 wins now? He could have had 3 wins, coulda, woulda, shoulda. And that's the difference between winning championships and not, because you've got to finish as well, haven't you? I mean, there are plenty of drivers below that are finishing finishing and they're getting points and they're floating around, and then suddenly somebody like Dennis then gets a win or a couple of wins under his belt, he's shot right up and he's up there ready to then challenge for that championship. So first of all, obviously the biggest rule is keep your car on the track, finish a race. And all the powers that be at Red Bull are watching all of these drivers because they don't want to put anybody in their machine, their very expensive machine, on a circuit that is going to be crashing it and taking it off and costing them a lot of money when there are all these cost caps and these money caps coming in. That has to be taken into consideration as well. And of course, we're preaching to the converted, regarding, we don't know if any drivers watch this or not, but and if any of them are watching, they already know this. They don't need us amateur, like you say, armchair experts to tell them. But I just think that lap after lap, Dennis said that he noticed that his margins were changing on every lap, and that's why he kept up with him, and that's why he kept the pressure up, because he sort of could see that he wasn't being exact on each lap, and Dennis felt that he would make a mistake. So if Dennis felt it, what was he? Could Yuri not feel it? Could he not? I don't know that the answer to that whatsoever. It's just me, sitting here, like you say, armchair experts, and I absolutely hated saying that. I don't even know why I said that. I'm so sorry, and I'm sorry, Yuri. I'm gutted, absolutely gutted. But I thought that I was so excited. I thought that'd be another win for him. And just needs to. You said one of you said, I can't remember which one, Lawrence, maybe. You hope he's got some good people around him. Just to sort of have a word and say, let's go reset, refocus. But we're lucky because it is sort of I know he's Estonian, but it's the home race. Milton Keynes, it's Silverstone, right next to where he's based with Red Bull and based with High Tech, and he's coming home for the next race. So come on, Yuri, get your head sorted out. Let's get a win.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're all hoping that he can bounce back. And you're only as good as your last race in Formula 2, aren't you? So if he goes and wins a feature race in Silverstone, then we all forget about it. And we all talk about how brilliant Yuri Vips is. So fingers crossed for him. Let's talk about our sprint race winner then, Frederik Vesti. And I mean, what a drive. What a drive. He took advantage of the mistake of Jehan Deruvala, as we said. And he's really starting to come into his own as well, isn't he, LA?
Yeah, I mean, he said, it must have been obviously at the end of the race, he said, when I signed my Formula 2 contract with ART, I was looking forward to Baku. Baku was the race I wanted to drive in. And he must have just have had a sixth sense about this. He must have known he was going to get that win. I mean, he took the lead straight away in that sprint race, although he did sort of, lose it again. Deruvala and Hughes, got their places back. But he got his elbows out. He took P2 again off Jake, and he went around the outside to get that as well. So that was a really handy move. And then there was a safety car restart. Well, obviously we had a few, but there was a safety car restart where Jehan did do that lock up. And difference was Vesti kept his head, didn't get affected or phased by that moment, took the lead and scampered off and won. And absolutely well done to him. I mean, he's done quite well. He's sixth, seventh, third, if I'm right. He's got some quite good results in. And as a rookie, you can see he's learning his craft. At the beginning of the season, the focus, I think, was on Theo Pocher, his teammate. The story was about Theo, and it could be his season. And I think that Frederik fell under the radar a little bit. Everyone wasn't really watching him. So he's been able to get on with things quietly in the background. But he's being noticed now, isn't he, for all the right reasons. But we have to remember, he is a champion. He's Formula Regional champion. He does know how to win a championship. He knows how to win races, especially at some real racing circuits, proper racing circuits. Red Bull Ring, Monza, Mugello, 4 wins there that he's had in Formula 3. So he knows how to win the races. He knows how to win a championship. He's got an incredible little team around him. He's got a fantastic trainer, John Noonan, who's a friend of Inside F2. So he's got the right people. Not all drivers have a full-time performance coach at the circuit. And I feel that sometimes you can kind of see the difference with the drivers that do have someone there the whole time and that are constantly working away with them. So Frederick Vesti, he's doing everything he should be doing in this formula this year.
Not only a sprint race win, Lawrence, but also in the feature race. I know he stalled on the grid for the feature race, but they managed to come from the back of the grid all the way through to P7. Mega drive. I suppose the question is, and this probably will be the most important question on the podcast, to be fair, is the second ART seat curse over? Or have Teo Porcher and Frederick Vesti, have they swapped seats for the last couple of weekends? What's happened, Lawrence? Why is Vesti doing so well and Porcher struggling a little bit?
Well, I think, and I certainly hope, that curse is over now. I think the way, as Ali said, that Vesti has been performing has been really brilliant. Equally, at the same time, Teo Porcher hasn't quite been at that same level over the weekend at Baku. So perhaps they have swapped seats, or the curse has migrated into the other seat. Who knows? But I think any notion of a curse at ART has certainly changed. And when you look at how lots of the rookies have done so far this season, and they've built up, as we've mentioned already, with Dennis Halger, then I think, yeah, he's there now. He's ready to compete at the front consistently. And what could have been if he hadn't stalled at the start? How far up the field could he get? We saw it with Lawson in the sprint race, who gained 7 positions in 1 lap. Felipe Drugovich made it all the way to the podium after a difficult opening lap. There is the ability to recover and move up around this circuit. So, yeah, a really good performance from Vesti, and I think all is well at ART, and they can start. They've only got a tiny gap now to Prema, and if those two teams have 2 drivers that are consistently fighting at the front, then that will always make Formula 2 rather entertaining.
I'm not having it, and until ART get a 1-2, then I think the curse is still there. But let's wait and see. Logan Sargent, Lawrence, we're going to stick with you. Mega weekend, P2 in the feature race, P6 in the sprint race, and he could easily have had a double podium this weekend, couldn't he? But yeah, real improvement, and he's having a really quietly strong season, and he pushes himself into P4 in the standings.
He really is, and like you say, somehow quietly good season that he's been at such a level of consistency. Yet he hasn't got that win yet. So he's still looking for that. But the performances have been there, and he's building and he's building. And I don't really think that going into the season, people were expecting that of all the rookies in the field that he would be up at the front of that pack. So he's really done well, and he's proved why he's in the position that he is. And it was another good performance. He was another driver around Baku who, especially for a young driver, did really well to balance the aggression when you needed it to make moves with backing out of it and coming through the race cleanly. To navigate a race like that with so many, but with both races, with safety cars and restarts, we had some very slow restarts where the whole field concertinas together, and that created incidents, and there was stuff going on left, right, and centre. And even experienced drivers like Teo Porcher was caught out by one of the restarts. So to do all that and to come out with the result is really impressive from him. And so if he's at this point now, where can he go in the future? So things are very much looking bright for Logan Sargent.
Yeah, I mean, Halger, Sargent and Vesti all having strong weekends. It was a really strong weekend for the rookies, wasn't it? So good for them. And I can't believe we've gone this long into the podcast about speaking about our championship leader, Felipe Drugovich. But it shows how much action there was this weekend, doesn't it? Not an electric weekend by Felipe Drugovich's standards, but another podium, his 6th of the season. And the boy from Brazil is doing everything that he needs to do, isn't he, LA?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what, nearly 50 points now ahead of Boucher. No, it's Formula 2. We all know that, those points are actually quite easy to claw back. But if you are in a race or a race weekend where you're not really expecting to perform like he didn't this weekend, then and you're still getting results like this, then that is the way that you're going to win a championship. He's now on 4 wins, and again, that's what's going to win a championship. He qualified in 5th. They weren't resigned to the weekend, but Felipe had said that they'd been looking at the data from the previous year. They knew the car, sort of didn't suit this circuit that particularly well. So he used the word conservative, in his interviews, and said that that's how they sort of went into the weekend, quite conservatively, just trying to stay out of trouble. And if you do look at it, if you qualify around that sort of maybe around the P5 to P10 area on a street circuit, that's potentially one of the worst places to qualify, isn't it? Because it's sort of right in that middle of that bunch there. So for him, it was a real surprise. I mean, he started in the middle of the pack, both races, finished P5 in the sprint race, and obviously finished on the podium in the feature race. Did I say that the right way around? Feature race. Um, he actually said he got quite angry on the start, in that feature race. He slipped down to 8th on the first lap, so he got quite frustrated and angry about it. But he kept his head. Obviously, must have done, had a little word with himself, stayed out of trouble. Everything else going on around him, and absolutely did perform and still got on the podium. So I think that he knocked my socks off this weekend, really, because of the fact that he wasn't leading from the front. He wasn't expecting to win this, and he still got a podium. I want to really quickly add, and I might get edited here, but about Sargent, what he said was that he is learning. He's a rookie. He understands he's a rookie. He understands he's got so much to learn about Formula 2. And even on Saturday, he said he wasn't doing the restarts very well. And he learned that quickly overnight, or from the results, or from what happened and his telemetry and his data, that when it came to that feature race, he put those restarts together, put all that learning into practice, and look where Logan Sargent finished.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Felipe Drugovich, he made those positions in the pit stops, didn't he? He had his pace when everyone else was in the pits was electric yet again, and that comes down to his tyre management, which has been exceptional this season. Formula One journalist and writer Philip Horton tweeted over the weekend saying that Felipe Drugovich is 49 points clear in the Formula 2 Championship, giving him a buffer of over a round's worth of points over the rest. No one else is consistent enough to put up a fight. Lawrence, your thoughts on that?
Well, so far that's proved to be true. If the season was from Bahrain to Baku, that would be completely undisputable, because nobody has been close to him in terms of consistency. Of course, lots of things have gone wrong for other drivers, been lots of misfortunes. That's potentially a little bit unkind towards them. But if you look at Drugovich's season as a whole so far, and if you take out that bizarre Monaco sprint race where he put on wet tyres during the dry just to gamble a move up the top 10 because Monaco is the way Monaco is, and if you take out the Imola feature race where he still finished 10th, if you take out those two results, his worst finish has been 6th so far this season. Now, that's a really impressive statistic, and that shows just how consistent he's been. And, even this weekend in Baku, where most of the drivers felt they could have improved over in qualifying, not a lot of drivers were particularly happy that with a lap time so reliant on getting the toe as well, he still managed to qualify 5th, as LA said, and put himself in a position to take advantage of those errors. And he drove like somebody who will win the championship this season. He backed out of it on the first lap at turn 2 and turn 3 with cars up his inside. And that lost in some places. And, he was frustrated with that, as LA said. but he made them back later on, and that is the key balance. And he wasn't too aggressive with Deruvula, who was really squeezing him under braking at turn 2 at one of the safety car restarts. And so that's really paid dividends. And I mentioned it before, it's that perfect balance of aggression that he's had that has seen him be so consistent so far this season. He now has a 49-point lead, and we're nearly at the halfway point in the season. That is, if you remove the sprint races, that's nearly 2 whole feature race wins that Pourchaire would need to get to bridge that gap to him. And we're nearly halfway through the season. So if that gap maintains for the next 2 or 3 rounds, then it really becomes a case of it's his championship to lose now. That's how consistent he's been. And in a field full of talent, to be a sort of a little bit of a step above everybody else is really, really impressive. So I think what Drugovich has done this season, I don't think anybody really expected. I think we all knew his talent, but the level that he's shown has been absolutely phenomenal.
Absolutely. And if you go on Formula 2 socials and have a look at the comments, they are full of Brazilian fans absolutely loving the fact that he's top of the standings. So good for Felipe. A few incidents to dissect over the weekend, and we're going to do them quick in the interest of time because we are running over schedule. First of all, Ralph Boschung pushing Callum Williams into the wall at turn 1 at the end of the sprint race. We're all big Ralph Boschung fans. We all love Ralph Boschung. But he's driven so many laps around this circuit. He knows the wall comes back towards you on the exit. Should he have maybe given Callum Williams a slight bit more space there, LA?
Yeah, I feel that corner is, I think it's the most incident-filled corner in any formula, arguably. Someone throw that statistic at me. It is a very tricky corner, isn't
You'll
it?
get comments in
And
the comments section below, 100%.
that's fine. Hey, every day's a school day, no problem. Um, yeah, and yeah, I do feel that I don't feel that you need to give way and open up doors for everybody and take your foot off the gas. By no means do I think that. At the end of the day, these guys are racing and they're racing for careers and they're racing for their lives. And so no, but don't open the door, but certainly consider that corner and what can potentially happen on it. And it was an awful accident. That the potential of that. Luckily, it wasn't incredibly high speed. The potential for Callan and for Jem behind him, that had no choice. He was being squeezed a little bit as well, and he had nowhere to go. Because he was 2x2 as well going into that corner, and I felt so sorry. I felt sorry for both of them too. Then that ended up in the wall, and I'm just really relieved and really glad that both of them, got out of those cars and they were both fine. Yeah, nobody wants to see that. We love F2. We love the safety cars. We love all this happening, but we definitely don't want to see that kind of thing, do we?
Yeah, echo those thoughts. I'm glad that everyone involved was okay. An Ornery Cordeal as well, Lawrence, given a penalty, points penalty for his incident with Ollie Caldwell, which unfortunately does mean he's hit the 12 penalty points and he'll miss the race in Silverstone. Talk us through that. Is that harsh or is that fair, Lawrence?
I think it's maybe slightly harsh, that one penalty point on its own, because there was a bit of a concertina effect, and he's just not maybe quite been especially as aware as he might have been. But he's been deemed to be at fault, and sometimes those things go against you. The larger issue is that he was on 11 points before the race started, and you really shouldn't be getting in that position where 1 point means that you lose a race. And when you're in that position, you've got to make sure you get through the race cleanly, because there's getting a result and there's actually being able to turn up in Silverstone in the first place, which you won't be able to do now. So that's really, really tough for him. But you have to sort of take that responsibility and say, I've made too many errors this season, and I shouldn't be getting those penalty points.
Absolutely, completely agree. Anyone want to throw out any early suggestions for a replacement? And we'll hold you to it as well. Is David Beckmann the early favourite, given that he has already driven a race this season, or a weekend this season?
Yeah, I think he would make a lot of sense. It's difficult. Could you get someone that's gone off from F2 and could come back? Get Callum Ilott back or Oscar Piastri. They would do a brilliant job, I'm sure. Although Callum Ilott's quite busy at the moment, to be fair to him. So yeah, I think David
Oscar
Beckmann's a
Piastri
sensible
might be as well,
shout.
I was just going to say that he might be busy. There's rumours going on about him having seat fittings at the moment.
Well,
so
yeah, there you go.
LA, anyone?
yeah, I don't know. I kind of think I'd like to see somebody come up that's going to come up that we haven't seen yet. You know, when Jake got his opportunity, when Alesi sort of switched teams, and you know, this sort of rookie had not been in F2 before. Jake popped himself up, didn't he? And that's how we now know and love him in the other VAR car. I don't know, someone like Victor Martins. I don't know, someone who knows, someone new. Let's see some fresh blood in Formula 2.
Yeah, Formula 3 on that weekend as well. So it would. Can someone do both? Can they do Formula 2 and Formula 3?
Yes. There's nothing to say they can, and there's nothing to say that they won't just pop out of that seat for that little opportunity in F2 either. It's happened before.
Absolutely. Let's wait and see. Okay, that's all we have time for today. My thanks to LA and my thanks to Lawrence as well for joining me on today's show. And thank you to you guys at home as well for watching. If you've enjoyed the show, make sure you give us a like, subscribe for more Formula 2 content. Let us know what you thought in the comments. Hashtag the F2 show if you want to get involved in the conversation on social media. But from me, Fraser Ford, and all of us here at Inside F2, we'll see you next time.